All right, so get ready because today we're diving into Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray.
Ooh, yes, a classic.
It is. And, you've sent us excerpts focusing on Dorian, that infamous portrait, and the oh-so-quotable Lord Henry Wotton.
Yes, we've got a lot to unpack here.
Definitely. We're going to go beyond just the plot points, though, right? We're going to be thinking about beauty, morality,
Influence.
the influence of some unique personalities, for sure.
Definitely.
And we're really looking at how Wilde dissects society's obsession with appearances.
Especially in the Victorian era.
Yes,
I
exactly.
think Wilde's own life adds another layer to this too, doesn't it? I mean, his reputation as this flamboyant wit, this challenger of norms. You can definitely see some of that in Lord Henry.
Oh, 100%. So, okay, let's set the stage for our listener.
Okay.
Dorian Gray, he's our protagonist.
Yes.
And his beauty, it's almost unreal.
It's captivating.
It really is.
Yeah.
And Basil Hallward, he's an artist. He becomes completely fixated on Dorian.
Understandably.
And he paints his portrait. And then we have Lord Henry Wotton.
The ultimate dandy.
The ultimate dandy who just fills Dorian's head with all these ideas about pleasure, about pursuing beauty above all else.
Not exactly your typical advice columnist.
Oh, no, not at all. But it's interesting because right from the first excerpt you gave us, we see Lord Henry and he's lounging in this vibrant, almost overwhelming garden.
That's a great way to put it.
And he drops this line. He says, "I believe anything, provided that it is incredible."
It's like he's anticipating something extraordinary, isn't it?
It's like he's almost setting a trap.
And in walks Dorian with all that captivating youth.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it's Basil, the artist, who senses the danger immediately.
Right from the start.
Yeah, he calls Lord Henry's influence bad.
Yeah.
And he actually pleads with him to not spoil Dorian.
Which, of course, makes us as readers want to see it happen even more.
Yeah, exactly. So we know that's exactly what's going to
For
happen.
cares?
But the scene where all three of them meet for the first time is crucial.
Oh, it's pivotal.
So imagine this. Dorian's literally posing for his portrait.
Okay.
And all the while, Lord Henry's just weaving this web of philosophy. And Basil is so focused on capturing Dorian's image
Right.
that he almost misses the shift that's taking place right in front of him.
Oh, I see.
And he tries to stop Lord Henry.
But is it too late at this point?
It feels like it. The
Yeah.
damage, it seems to be done.
And that's where we encounter Dorian's infamous wish.
Yes.
He sees the finished portrait, and he's so struck by his own beauty that he says, "I would give my soul for that portrait to age instead of me."
It's chilling.
Chilling.
It really is. It reveals so much about Dorian's fear of aging.
Which Lord Henry has amplified, by the way.
Yes, oh, absolutely. He's definitely played on that. But it also brings up this huge question, right?
Yeah.
What does giving up your soul for something like that even mean?
And what could the consequences be?
And that's where Wilde's genius comes in.
Yes.
He doesn't just tell us what happens.
He doesn't.
He makes us feel the weight of those consequences.
How does he do that?
So he uses the portrait as a mirror,
Okay.
and it reflects Dorian's inner transformation as he kind of dives deeper into this hedonistic lifestyle.
Okay.
Take, for instance, his cruel treatment of Sybil Vane.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
It is.
The young actress that he becomes infatuated with.
Yeah. And the way that Wilde describes the change in the portrait afterwards,
Yeah.
it's subtle,
Subtle.
but it's powerful.
Okay.
So Dorian notices just a touch of cruelty in the mouth of the figure.
It's such a small detail,
It is.
but incredibly significant.
It is. It marks the beginning of this horrifying change.
Yeah.
This visible manifestation of Dorian's internal corruption.
So we see how his actions, however small, they're leaving their mark.
They are.
Not just on his soul,
Right.
but on his image, on his portrait.
I know. It makes you wonder, what if we all had a portrait like that?
Oh, that's an interesting thought.
Would we be as reckless if
Yeah.
we could see the impact so clearly?
I don't know. That's a tough one.
It is. But there's another layer here too, isn't there? The fact that Dorian can hide the portrait.
Yes.
Lock it away.
He's suppressing his conscience, isn't he?
He is. He's hiding it from the world, from himself even.
But that avoidance, that inability to face his own darkness,
Yeah.
it seems to fuel his descent even more.
It does. It becomes this vicious cycle.
The more he hides, the worse it gets.
Yeah. The more monstrous he becomes and the more monstrous the portrait becomes.
Yes.
It's like he's trying to outrun his own shadow.
Right.
But the portrait is always there.
Always
This
in-
constant reminder.
Yeah, a reminder of the price he's paying.
Exactly. But the portrait's not just about Dorian's individual morality.
No, it's not.
There's a broader kind of societal element here, don't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wilde is using the portrait to comment on Victorian society's obsession with appearances.
Yes.
And the hypocrisy that lurked beneath the surface.
Yes. So Dorian, he maintains this facade of youthful beauty.
But the portrait, it reflects the ugliness of his actions.
It does.
The corruption that's hidden from view.
It's a powerful reminder that what we see on the surface isn't always the whole story.
Right.
There are secrets, there are hidden desires.
And a darker side to human nature.
Yes, that often goes unnoticed.
Absolutely. And Wilde, he doesn't shy away from exploring this complexity.
He doesn't.
He forces us to confront the uncomfortable reality that even the most beautiful, the most charming individuals can harbor darkness within.
Yeah, so it begs the question, how do we reconcile the beauty we see with the knowledge of the darkness that might lie beneath?
Right. Are we complicit in perpetuating this illusion by valuing appearances over substance?
Ooh, good question. And it makes me think,
yeah,
are we any less susceptible to this today?
Especially with social media.
Exactly. We're curating this perfect image online. I mean, are we any different?
Like we're all living in a digital version of Dorian Gray's world, aren't we?
Yeah, constantly striving for that flawless facade.
While our inner portraits might be telling a very different story.
Oh, wow. Okay. But, before we go too far down that rabbit hole, let's get back to Dorian's story. As we move forward with these excerpts.
Yeah.
We're going to see how his descent into darkness unfolds, and we'll see the consequences that come with it.
We're going to delve deeper into the symbolism of the portrait too, aren't we?
Yes, absolutely. We're going to look at its role as a representation of Dorian's conscience, his self-deception.
And ultimately the price he pays for his Faustian bargain.
I am hooked.
Me too.
And I have a feeling our listener is too.
Definitely.
So let's keep going.
Yeah.
I am dying to see where Wilde takes us next.
Let's do it.
As we delve deeper into these excerpts, one thing that really strikes me is the power of influence. Lord Henry's role in Dorian's transformation.
Oh, it's undeniable.
It really is.
He's like a master manipulator, isn't he?
He is.
Planting those seeds of hedonism in Dorian's mind.
Yeah. And encouraging him to just indulge in every fleeting pleasure.
It's fascinating how Wilde uses language to craft Lord Henry's character. He speaks in these witty epigrams, paradoxes.
He does.
It's like he's constantly performing.
It's charming.
It is charming.
But so dangerous.
Oh, especially for someone as impressionable as Dorian.
Absolutely. I mean, Wilde was a master of that kind of sharp, insightful wit.
He was.
And I think it's no coincidence that Lord Henry's words are so seductive.
They are alluring.
They appeal to our desire for beauty, for pleasure.
Living life to the fullest.
Exactly. But there's that dark undercurrent to his philosophy, isn't there?
There is.
It's like he's dangling this tempting fruit in front of Dorian, urging him to taste it without even considering the consequences.
And Dorian, captivated by this new perspective, he drinks it all in.
He does. He becomes fixated on preserving his youth and beauty.
Right.
Clinging to Lord Henry's words as if they were gospel.
And this is where the psychological aspect of the novel gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Dorian's inability to age.
Right.
To experience the natural progression of life.
Yeah.
It seems to stunt his emotional development.
It does.
He becomes detached, almost callous.
Yeah.
Unable to truly connect with others.
Right.
Or understand the depth of their emotions.
I never thought about it that way. Yeah. It's like his unchanging beauty becomes a barrier.
Preventing him from fully experiencing the world.
Yeah.
Forming genuine relationships.
Yeah, and this detachment.
This lack of empathy.
Yeah.
It allows him to commit these increasingly cruel acts.
It does.
Without any real remorse.
Yeah.
He treats people like objects.
He does.
Discarding them when they no longer serve his pleasure.
Yeah.
Or threaten his carefully constructed image.
Which brings us back to Sybil Vane.
Oh, poor Sybil Vane.
Her suicide.
Yeah.
Such a tragic turning point in the novel.
It is.
And it's not just that Dorian is responsible for her death.
Right.
It's the way he reacts to it, or rather, doesn't react.
The lack of empathy.
That's so chilling.
It's chilling.
He's more concerned with how her death might affect his reputation than with the loss of a human life.
And that coldness, that callousness.
Yeah.
It's reflected in the portrait.
It is.
In that increasingly grotesque transformation.
Yeah. It's as if the portrait is absorbing all the ugliness of his actions.
The weight of his sins.
Yeah. Becoming this visual manifestation of his corrupted soul.
It's a powerful reminder.
Powerful.
That our actions have consequences.
They do.
Not just for ourselves,
Right.
but for those around us.
And it's not just about individual actions either, is it?
No, it's not.
Wilde seems to be suggesting that this pursuit of pleasure without regard for morality
Right.
can have this corrupting influence on society as a whole.
It can?
Think about the people who surround Dorian.
Yes.
They're aware of his dark deeds.
Right. But they choose to look the other way.
They do. They're complicit in his depravity.
More concerned with maintaining their social standing
Yeah.
than with confronting the truth.
It's like Wilde is holding up a mirror.
To Victorian
To
society.
Victorian society, exactly.
Exposing the hypocrisy.
Moral decay.
That can fester beneath this veneer of respectability.
It makes me wonder, are we any different today?
Good question.
Do we turn a blind eye to the injustices?
To the suffering around us.
Yeah. More focused on our own comfort and pleasure.
Than on the well-being of others.
It's an uncomfortable question,
It is.
but one worth asking.
Wilde's work challenges us
It does.
to examine our own values,
Yeah.
to consider the consequences of our choices
And to confront the potential for darkness.
that exists within us all.
So speaking of confronting darkness,
Yes.
let's talk about Dorian's brief attempt at redemption.
Okay.
There's this moment in the excerpts you chose
Yes.
where he becomes infatuated with a young woman from the country,
Right.
and he tries to change his life.
He tries.
It seems like he genuinely wants to be good,
Says he.
to make amends for his past.
It's a fleeting moment, though, isn't it?
It is.
His motivation seems to stem more from a desire to erase the marks of his sins from the portrait
Okay.
than from a genuine change of heart.
And when he sees that the portrait remains unchanged,
What happens?
his anger and despair.
Yeah.
It's palpable.
He can't escape the consequences of his actions.
He can't. No matter how hard he
That's
tried.
heartbreaking, isn't it?
It is. It shows that true redemption,
Yeah.
it's not a simple act of will.
It's not.
It requires deep self-reflection.
Right.
A willingness to confront our past.
And a commitment to making amends.
Yeah.
For the harm we've caused.
And it highlights the lasting power of guilt, too.
It does.
Difficulty of breaking free from that cycle of sin.
Yeah, Dorian's attempt at redemption fails.
It does.
Because he's still clinging to this illusion of his own innocence.
He is. He's trying to erase the evidence.
Yeah.
Rather than truly acknowledging and atoning.
It's a powerful lesson.
It is.
And one that I think resonates with all of us.
It does. We've all made mistakes.
You have.
We've all done things we regret.
Yeah. But the true test of character lies in how we deal with those mistakes.
Exactly. Do we try to hide them or do we confront them head on? And it's in that confrontation.
That willingness to face our own darkness.
Yes.
That we can begin to find true redemption.
Yeah.
And move towards a more authentic life.
More fulfilling.
Yeah. But, as we know, Dorian chooses a different path.
He does.
He decides to destroy the portrait.
He does.
Believing that it's the source of his misery.
The only evidence of his crimes.
It's a desperate act.
It is.
A final attempt to escape the consequences.
It's almost as if he's trying to kill his conscience.
To silence that inner voice.
Yeah, that's been tormenting him.
For so long.
For so long. But in doing so, he seals his own fate.
Right.
Dorian's final act.
Yeah.
Both tragic and inevitable.
It is.
It's the culmination of a life.
Lived in pursuit of fleeting pleasures.
A life devoid of genuine connection.
Empathy.
And ultimately, meaning.
And the portrait, restored to its original beauty,
Yeah.
becomes a symbol of the enduring power of truth.
It does. No matter how hard we try to hide our darkness.
It will always find a way to surface.
It's a chilling reminder.
That the consequences of our actions can't be escaped.
They can't.
No matter how desperately we try to outrun them.
And it leaves us with this haunting question, doesn't it?
It does. What would our own portraits reveal?
If they reflected not just our physical appearance,
Right.
but the true state of our souls.
It's a thought-provoking question.
It is.
And one that lingers.
It lingers. But before we get too introspective,
Right.
let's shift our focus to another key aspect of the book.
What's that?
The role of art.
Okay.
And its ability to reveal truth.
Yes. That's crucial.
It is. And it ties in beautifully with our discussion of beauty, morality, and the consequences of choices.
It does, because, after all, it's through art
Through Basil's portrait.
that Dorian's true nature is revealed.
So the portrait, it's interesting how it becomes like a character itself.
Oh, yeah. It starts as this beautiful, idealized image of Dorian.
Right.
But then it evolves into something so much more.
It does. And I'm struck by the fact that Basil,
The artist?
the artist, he's both captivated and horrified by what he creates.
Yeah, I mean, he's drawn to Dorian's beauty, right? He sees him as this perfect muse. But then he's confronted with the ugliness that comes out in the portrait.
And that ugliness is from Dorian's choices.
Exactly, exactly. It's like this struggle between the idealized vision of art and the harsh reality of human nature.
And Basil's fate.
Oh, yeah.
Being murdered by Dorian.
It adds another layer of tragedy to the story, doesn't it?
It really does.
It's like Dorian's corruption consumes not only himself,
but also the person who tried to capture his beauty, his innocence.
Yeah, it's a sobering reminder that even those with the best intentions can get caught in the crossfire.
They can. So going back to the idea of art as a reflection of truth.
Right.
Do you think Wilde is suggesting that art has a responsibility to expose the darker aspects of humanity?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Even if it means challenging our perceptions of beauty.
I think that gets to the heart of Wilde's artistic philosophy.
Okay.
I mean, he wasn't afraid to push boundaries, right? To challenge societal norms and expectations.
And he uses art as a tool to dissect those very notions of beauty and morality.
Exactly. It's not just about creating something aesthetically pleasing.
Right.
It's about using art to make us think, to question our assumptions, to confront those uncomfortable truths.
So Wilde believed that art should be thought-provoking.
It should be even subversive, you know?
It shouldn't shy away from the complexities of human nature.
No. It's
the darkness that exists alongside beauty.
The portrait becomes a symbol of that.
Okay.
It's beautiful and repulsive,
right.
Captivating and horrifying.
It really makes us confront that duality of human existence.
The potential for both good and evil within us all.
So that brings us back to one of the central questions, right?
What's that?
What is the true nature of beauty?
Right. Is it simply about outward appearances? Or is there something more?
Is there?
Something that goes beyond the surface?
And what do you think Wilde is suggesting?
I think he's suggesting that true beauty is fleeting and superficial.
Okay.
When it's detached from morality and empathy.
So Dorian, he maintains his youthful appearance.
He does.
But his soul,
as reflected in the portrait,
becomes increasingly corrupted.
Oh, and more.
And his pursuit of pleasure without regard for others,
right.
It leads to this hollow existence.
A gilded cage of his own making.
It's a stark contrast to the beauty that we see in characters like Sybil Vane.
Oh, Sybil.
Despite her tragic end,
yeah,
she embodies a different kind of beauty.
One that comes from her passion, her vulnerability,
yeah,
her capacity for love and empathy.
And her beauty is genuine and authentic.
It is, even in the face of Dorian's cruelty.
And it's her death that ultimately marks that turning point.
In Dorian's journey.
Yeah. It's the moment when those cracks in his facade begin to show.
When the weight of his actions becomes too heavy.
And the portrait becomes increasingly grotesque.
A constant reminder.
A reminder of the price he's paid.
For his hedonistic pursuits.
It's a chilling reminder that we can't escape the consequences of our choices.
No matter how hard we try to hide from them.
Sure. And I think that's one of the most powerful messages here.
I agree.
We can't just erase our past.
We can't pretend our actions don't have consequences.
Exactly. True beauty.
Real redemption.
It comes from confronting our mistakes.
Acknowledging the harm.
Striving to live a life aligned with our values.
It's a message that resonates just as strongly today.
It does. In a world that prioritizes image over substance.
It's easy to get caught up in that pursuit of superficial beauty.
Yeah. Instant gratification.
Presenting a perfect facade to the world.
But the picture of Dorian Gray...
a cautionary tale.
It is. It reminds us that true beauty lies in the integrity of our choices.
The compassion we show.
The authenticity with which we live our lives.
And it reminds us that we all have the capacity for both darkness and light.
We do. It's up to us to choose which path we follow.
Which aspects of ourselves we nurture.
This deep dive has given me so much to think about.
Me too.
Not just about the novel, but about my own life, my own choices.
It's been an incredible journey.
It has, exploring the depths of Wilde's masterpiece.
We've uncovered some insightful gems along the way.
We have, to our listener who sent us the Picture of Dorian Gray.
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity to delve into this work.
We hope you have even more to ponder now.
And for everyone else listening, if you haven't already,
add this one to your reading list.
Just be prepared to face some uncomfortable truths along the way.
But isn't that what great literature is all about?
It is. It's not always about easy answers or happy endings.
It's about prompting us to think critically.
To engage with those complex ideas.
To live more meaningful lives.
Mm-hmm.
And on that note,
I want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay.
What would your portrait reveal? It's a question worth pondering, isn't it?
It is. Until next time, happy reading, everyone.